once we got a bass player into that fold, and we know this is like pretty much the beginning stages of illScarlett, is when we started going to the things like you used to run these jam sessions. We heard of, through somebody's like, you guys should show up at this Fox and the Fiddle. This guy does this, blah, blah. And there's a couple of these that kind of popped up around town. I would say 2002, 3 era. And we started going to these places, and we'd play our 2 or 3 songs, and the bars were always packed. People are eager to drink on a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, which is hilarious. But we would go up there, do our 3 songs, and they would be always something different than what the main guys were doing. The host would usually do the top 40 stuff, and Alex and I and Dan at the time, we would just we were doing a lot of reggae stuff, mainly Sublime stuff. And, we had a couple like 90s alternative songs we throw in there, but it was more so getting our chops in front of people. That was the whole point there. And it was a fun time. So you're interacting with all these new people, but you're also getting experience playing in front of people and getting comfortable. So those were actually crucial. These jams were really crucial for us in the beginning. And around that time, when we finally found the Streetsville jam session that Christian used to run at the Devil's Harp, that's when we finally found like people our age, peers, that would show up to these things, where the other jam sessions were like, older musicians and kind of a different audience. But it was the Devil's Harp one where it was just literally all the Streetsville partiers that would come to this Monday night jam. And that one became like the best one for us, because just for whatever reason that we connected with all those people. And then Neil Alliance came into play, and we'd be going back to his place, and then we found out about the Masonic Lodge, about all these shows happening there. And realizing, wow, there's this huge community here. So that was a good way to connect with a younger audience, which was instrumental for our growth, because you're playing to high school kids that can't get into the bars. So you throw these shows on the weekends, and then on the weekdays we'd go jam to our peers, and just cultivate those relationships. And like that was a huge turning point, where it's like there's something here, there's something special. Streetsville, all the kids are passing around the CDs, the name is going around, the shows are getting bigger. So we're like, we have something here. And that was between 2002 and 2004. 2004 was the release of our not all day with it, our LP. But by that point, it was just like, we're packing shows, selling out thousands of CDs, and there's something here. It's just a matter of time. There was lots of ups and downs as well. Sometimes you feel like giving up and like, I think I got to go back to school or something. But in general, the trajectory was pretty consistent.
So you're putting in your 10,000 hours, you're getting great live, you're writing, your music is getting better, the stuff that you're writing, you're starting to build the seeds that become illScarlett. Rumor has it that the band name comes from a stolen street sign. Is this true? And can you elaborate on how that came to be?
Yeah, it's that's exactly it. We were going to play at the Fox and Fiddle. I don't know if it's there anymore, but it's behind the Sheridan Mall. Actually, it's something else this time for sure. But anyways, we were playing there, and the guy hosting it used to have some kind of affiliation with Sony, and that to us, that was like a big foot in, even though it turned into nothing. It was just, we don't know a guy at Sony. This guy apparently is signed to Sony, so blah blah blah. This is our savior. So we kind of looked up to him for a little bit, but he's like, yeah, well, make me a demo and I'll pass it along. So we made this demo. It sounded like the absolute shit. It was awful, but we made it anyways. And we didn't have a name. So we're driving to this jam session, and we drove by. The word Scarlett was kind of something we were kicking around as a name, but anyways, we drove by, and there was a sign that said illScarlett. And I muttered out, how about we call it illScarlett? And Alex looks like, that's okay. I mean, fine. Let's use it for now because whatever, it sounds okay, but it's just, we'll figure it out after. Sure. That's what it was. We just took out the W off Will Scarlett Drive, put that on the CD, and then handed it in, and that was it. And then the name just ended up was good. We were going to change it, but as we kind of like toss the name around, people just like the sound of it. Means nothing at all. It just kind of sounds cool.
Well, once you start to have success, it's hard to change the name,
Well, that's the thing. Yeah. This was pre-success anyways. It was just like, okay, finding a band name is it's so hard for the most part, So it was just like that one, and it just sounded good. After a while, it sounded good. So we weren't going to mess around.
I recently had the band, the Standstills, on the podcast, and they were saying that they didn't like their name, like it was a placeholder, but then they were already signed to a big label and having success, and the label's like, you can't change your name now. I mean, we're already invested. So yeah, and the Standstills, I told them I thought that was a great name. It's not like a ridiculous name or anything, but they wanted to change their name as well, but you can't once the marketing machine is in place.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So I have a quote here from a fellow illScarlett band member. So this is from Jake Robertson, who I know from Metalworks. He used to play the open mics. So he says, Swav is a great choice to have on the podcast. I love Swav for his drumming power. He plays with a lot of energy and he hits the skins hard. And that's what we want. Always brings it every time. And he's also a genuine guy who's full of creativity. You get that vibe just being around him. He's a creative force for sure. Also, he's very versatile. He writes a lot and produces stuff. He's just super well-rounded, brah. So maybe you could hear Jake say brah. So that's from Jake Robertson.
Nice. Thanks, Jaker.
There you go. And he's super talented as well as a guitarist, as a singer, as a songwriter.
He's been our go-to guitar player. Like, I don't think he's like ever formally been inducted into the band, but as far as our last whatever shows we played, it's not too many these days, but he's our guitar player. I consider him a part of it. At some point I'm gonna just like hold him down and tattoo the name, because everybody that's played with us has the tattoo, so that's the only thing he's missing. So yeah, Jake, if you're listening, at some point you're gonna get a forced illScarlett tattoo on your leg.
That's the initiation. Can we see yours? It's on the arm, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I won't give it to him this big. He might have a little one, but
I was gonna ask you later on. In one of the music videos, I think it's Who's Got It. I think you show off the tattoo. Is it that video? Yeah, I was gonna ask if that was a real tattoo, and then when we were talking earlier, I saw it. So that's pretty epic. No. So all the members have it.
Yeah. I got it way before anything really happened. I was that convinced that we were gonna make it. I think it's when we released our LP, so 2004. We didn't get signed till about 2006, end of 2006. But yeah, I was convinced that I saw the growth, and I was just like, I'm not doing anything else. No plan B. I think to be honest with you, looking back on it, obviously that seems like a little bit of a crazy way to approach things, but when you're focused on something and you really, really want to get it, sometimes a plan B is not a good idea. It's just like, you put the tunnel vision on what you really want and just work hard for it, then it'll manifest itself. When you start putting plan Bs and maybe just in case I don't do this, or this doesn't happen, blah blah, I could always fall back on this. Then you always have that in your back of your head, and you're not going to go 150 to the direction that you want to achieve. So I'm not sure if that's good advice, but for me at that time, that was that kind of drive and that kind of focus was instrumental in us in us being successful.
When I study successful people, this podcast is about mastery, those who have achieved mastery. I find that they're all the same. They all burnt the boats. There was no plan B. They had this monomaniacal focus on just one thing that they were insanely passionate about.
Yeah,
And when someone is like that, the universe tends to conspire in their favor. It's like you cannot be stopped. And there's a certain energy and focus that you bring when you're committed to something. And if you stick with it long enough, the success is coming. It's just whether you're still there when it arrives. You got to
exactly.
stay strong. You got to keep going for the full distance. So you mentioned you guys recorded your debut album, LP 2004. What was the reception like when that album was released, and did that open certain doors and opportunities for you guys moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, it was like it the reception. It wasn't like it didn't go to the masses. It was more so for our fans. We only printed, I think, 3,000 of them, but they sold out steady, and it was like our first, kind of cohesive project that was complete, because up to that point it'd be like record 2 songs here, 3 songs there, make these little compilations, blah blah blah, just to kind of get some music out. But this was our first album, and it did bring attention to, like, it landed in a few important hands, that the interest of, like, our first label that we signed to, which was what was it?
Was that before Sony BMG?
Yeah, it was before Sony. We signed a deal with
Is that the Red Ink or whatever?
oh no, it was through EMI, but what was it? Not Stereo Dynamite. It was through EMI. Uh, man, I'm forgetting the name.
That's all good. It'll come to you in like
Yeah,
30
it's
minutes.
not important. Anyways, it was through EMI, and we signed this deal. It was actually it was a good developing deal for us. So at that point, it seemed like an amazing deal, because it was like, $30,000 to record, and it was a little bit extra money for what's it called, for um, as an advance, just to have a couple extra bucks to buy, some equipment, this and that. Um, but and we did sign, but then all these things fell apart with Sanctuary Records. That's what it was,
Okay.
Sanctuary Records. But there was a holdup of some sort that ended up lasting over a year, because the company was changing owners, and there's just, whatever, some behind the scenes stuff that ended up costing us a bunch of time. At this point, a year, if you're sitting around for a year, when you have momentum, it really becomes it's a terrible thing to slow down. So there's momentum, there's interest, there's all this kind of stuff, and you have that energy, you just want to keep going. So you sit on your ass for a year, so to speak, then it just slows that whole thing down, and you'll never know if you'll pick it back up. So while that was happening, we decided we're going to still continue. We had music. That's when Heaters, Nothing Special was written, and a couple songs around there. So we're like, we're going to record our own EP. And if these guys are ready to put it out, we'll put it out. If not, well, it's been over a year now, we're going to put it out ourselves. The label head there, great guy, honestly, Adam Stool, one of the kindest, most amazing people that we've ever experienced in the music industry. And he was like a big brother, almost like a father figure, because he showed us a bunch of stuff that we didn't know. We were super green, so he was a good guiding force to kind of navigate us through some of these things. But in the end, it didn't work out for us to staying with them, just because the band continued to grow during this whole time, even though in our heads we're like, oh, the ship's sinking, what's going to, panic mode kicks in, but it was still growing. The shows were getting bigger. There was still attention. Now there's agents involved. And at this point, a young manager that was our manager for a long time, Andy, ended up finding us. and he completely opened up our eyes to a whole different approach, what a good, what we, our potential could be. So, not a $30,000 deal. He was like, his eyes were set on a more of $1 million deal. And I was like, that's not ever going to happen. But, like in my head, I just wasn't thinking big enough, where he clearly saw something else. So by this point, yeah, we did end up putting out what was called Clearly in Another Fine Mess, which turned into the epidemic. We like shifted a few songs, took off, just kind of switched some stuff around. But Clearly in Another Fine Mess was our independent release before we signed on to Sony. And that had heaters on it, and that's also, yeah, because of that record, we got a whole bunch of local radio support from Edge 102. And this was before we got signed, and this is before we officially were with management. So like we got on the radio with heaters strictly because of a relationship with Barry Taylor, which was at that time like the main afternoon DJ there at Edge 102. And he passed along the music. He loved it. He brought it into a meeting, which doesn't happen that way. You usually have to go through all these other like channels of getting your music into actual production meeting. But he somehow got it in there. The people liked it, and yeah, they put it into rotation, to medium rotation. It tested well. So after that, all summer long, heaters was just being pumped like crazy. So that kind of, that opened our audience to such a bigger level, because getting Toronto to be, that's the main alternative station now I know it's a little different now, but yeah, Edge 102 pushing it was massive for us. So yeah, obviously all the labels seeing that and hearing that and kind of confused by how are these guys on and how are they not signed. By the time it came to signing, we had every single major label trying to get us. So we had when we did a release show at Opera House for Clearing Another Fine Mess. And it was sold out, oversold. Like they crammed an additional 300 people in there. And it usually fits like 800, 850. And there was closer to 1,100, 1,200 people. It just could not move. And every single label that major from Canada and a whole bunch of people from the US were flown in, and all this, like it was a bit of a shark tank in there. Special night for us. We felt very, very cool, like very grateful for what we achieved. And then, yeah, shortly after, we decided that we're going to go with Sony. That show actually, weirdly enough, is the show that our then bass player, which was with us the whole time, that was his last show, because a couple months before, he decided that he doesn't want to be in the band anymore. So he literally left just before we actually got really, really successful for, and that was a strange, in my opinion, that was just like I couldn't understand what it was, but he just wasn't feeling our direction, I guess. But it opened up a door for John, which is, he was one of our best friends in high school, incredible multi-instrument player. And I couldn't have been happier to have that addition back into the band. So yeah, it kind of worked out.